Take each game and its merits there.
So you're very welcome to the latest episode of Each Game on Its Merits. My name's Eibhilin O'Reardon.
And I'm Jerry Farrell.
And today, Jerry, we are going to talk about probably one of the more famous games in Irish football history. The famous draw, Ireland 4, Belgium 4 in a World Cup qualifier on the 25th of February 1934. And this very much is the Paddy Moore game. So can you give us some of the background to this game? It's a qualifier, it's a World Cup game, it's the first competitive game we've played in, it's the first actually FAI competitive game, if you might say, since the FAI was formed. It's the first game we've played since May of 1932, so almost 2 years. It's at home in front of 28,000 spectators at Eibhilin Park. The significance of this game, Jerry?
I suppose we get the significance looking back on this because we're saying, it's the first World Cup qualifying match we're involved in. Paddy Moore, who we'll talk about obviously a lot later in the episode, breaks a record, creates a record, and it's a very big deal looking back. But when you read the contemporary sources or you look at some of the interviews with the players in the years afterwards, they looked at this like just another international match. Look, obviously we had played Belgium very frequently. We'd played the Dutch, who are also in our qualifying group, very frequently. So in a weird way, it wasn't a step into the unknown. But I suppose the idea that this is tournament football obviously becomes very important later on when we understand truly the significance of the World Cup. But you've got to remember, the previous World Cup takes place in Uruguay, very far away.
Very remote, I suppose, to the mindset of your average football fan in Dublin.
Yeah, and very little media coverage in the Irish media. And of course, that tournament is invitation only. We get invited and we decide it's not worth our while paying the money to travel all the way to Montevideo. So this is a new thing. Also, the idea of qualifying is a new thing. And qualifying groups, which we're very familiar with, and we're very familiar with the Dutch and the Belgians in qualifying groups. But this is kind of a unique one, and it might just be worth explaining the format to listeners, because it is some things you will see as familiar and some things we'll find very different. So there's 3 teams in the qualifying group: ourselves, the Dutch and the Belgians. The top 2 qualify. Goal difference is used, which doesn't always happen because goal average and other formats were used in different things, but goal difference counts in this small qualifying group. Now most listeners will be familiar with a format where we play home and away.
Yeah.
That isn't the situation. And just a bit of background, Jack Ryder, who's the secretary of the FAI, is writing to FIFA going, this is kind of ridiculous. You're getting the runaround from the British FAs. They don't play in your tournaments. They're constantly having rows to you. But yet, continental sides like France and Austria are going to play England in London and different places like that. Yet we can't get a team to come, that little bit extra, to come play a match in Dublin. And they're asking for FIFA's help to try and get teams to come and play in Ireland. And that, as you say, we've gone a year and 9 months without a match. So we're trying to get teams to come over, but this is an issue for the Dutch and the Belgians. Now, we've beaten both Holland and Belgium relatively recently within the previous couple of years.
We have.
But they don't really want to come to Ireland. Now, maybe they don't want to give us the advantage, which is fair enough. But also, I suppose they're complaining about the fees, the amount of cost for travel, and maybe the lack of a guaranteed gate, things like that, which is surprising because they played here in front of big crowds. So there's a couple of proposals put forward. There's an initial proposal that we'd play a mini tournament, qualifying tournament, in the Netherlands ahead of the World Cup, and that we'd kind of play several rounds of games quickly and decide who goes through.
So all 3 countries would go to one location, play each other off, and then whoever the top 2, right? Okay.
Which we turned down.
Okay.
Then there's another proposal where
you want to make more money by having a game in Dublin.
Absolutely. So, but the Dutch and Belgian FAs don't want to do that. So then they offer fees to the FAI to say, well, play your 2 games away. Play your 1 game in Brussels and 1 game in Amsterdam. So the FAI say, stick to their guns in fairness and say, no, we want at least 1 home game. So there's not a home and away match. There's going to be 1, each team will play each other once. So an agreement is finally reached that the FAI, that Ireland will play 1 home game, which will be the Belgian game in Dalymount in February of 1934. And they'll play 1 away game in April 1934 against the Dutch in Amsterdam. And there's kind of fees agreed for that, so that the Belgians get a minimum kind of fee of £500 to cover their cost of coming over and playing in Dalymount Park, and the FAI agree with the guys in the Netherlands FA that they'll get £650 for playing in Amsterdam. and obviously this is strange as well, because you're saying, right, it's World Cup qualifying, surely everyone should play to the same rules. This doesn't happen in qualifying, and also we agree, and it's going to become relevant in this game and the next game, agree kind of proposals for the use of substitutes.
Yeah.
So substitutes are allowed in these matches for injured players only, and before half-time, an injured goalkeeper or up to 2 outfield players can be replaced, and then after half-time, only an injured goalkeeper can be replaced.
Right.
Now remember that, because it becomes relevant in both games.
This is before the era of feigning injury.
Yes, indeed.
Okay, well, you assume there was honourability was the order of the day.
And also, you got to remember, we have small travelling squads. You might have 2 or 3 reserves max.
Right. I get the sense, actually, that the modern sort of difference between a friendly and a competitive match isn't really the same in the 1930s, because games are so infrequent, and the idea of tournament football is so new in the World Cup context that, you know, if you're playing a big European side in Dublin, that's enough of an event in itself to spark the interest of the public.
I think I would liken it to, say, New Zealand coming to play in Dublin,
right?
Regardless of whether that's
match,
regardless whether it's a World Cup or not, it's a big draw for the rugby faithful.
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah. Okay. So anyway, this game anyway, I'll go through the team. Interesting that we have a number of Cork-based players, 2 Cork clubs. So we have 4 Cork-based players, 1 from Cork Bohemians and 3 from Cork FC, which is like is it the follow-on team from Fortsons, we think?
Yeah.
Okay, we can loosely say that. So lining out, we've got Jim Foley from Cork, Maya Lynch, who's from Cork Bohemians, both their first caps. Tom Burke from Cork, his first cap. Paddy Gaskins from Shamrock Rovers, his first cap. Joe Riley from Aberdeen. Joe Kendrick from Dolphin. Billy Kennedy, James's Gate. David Byrne, Coleraine, his third cap. Paddy Moore, Aberdeen. Tim O'Keefe, his first cap from Cork. And Jimmy Kelly from Derry City. And the captain is Paddy Gaskins.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, the 4-all draw, Ireland's...
let's just go back to that. So what jumps out at you from that list?
2 from 2 Northern-based players, 2 Aberdeen-based players, and 4 from Cork.
And no one from England.
And no one based in England, yeah.
And the reason being is that the English FA and the Football League are unhappy with us at this time. So we've talked a lot about the difficulty in getting players released, full stop. That sometimes they don't want players playing on a Sunday because they're very Sabbatarian.
So Farquharson isn't involved. Oh no, he's based in Wales.
Yes, but we'll come on to him for the next game.
Okay.
But Foley is a less experienced player. Foley's only a young guy. We'll talk a bit about him in a bit. But the English clubs refuse to release players. Basically what's happening at the moment is a thing called the open door system, which means that if you're a player who's maybe in the reserves at a team in England and you're a bit disgruntled, generally that club holds your registration. There's no such thing as running down your contract. Your registration is owned by the club, and they are basically your lord and master, and they can say whether you're going to go on the transfer list or you're not.
Yeah.
So someone decide, to hell with this, I'll jump across the water, go across the Irish Sea, play for an Irish club. To hell with my registration there. I'll get paid kind of decent money by an Irish team. Like if you look at someone, say like Dolphin or Shelburne or even Rovers at the time, we're bringing over lots of players from England and Scotland. So the English FA and the Football League are very annoyed about this, because it gives players an out and they want control over their players. So basically a missive goes out basically saying don't release players for this World Cup thing. Now it's important to say England don't participate in the World Cup. They're not interested in competing in the World Cup. They kind of look down on it as this kind of FIFA tournament that is kind of below them, beneath them. And obviously they don't play in a World Cup till 1950. So, and who's head of the Football League at the time? A guy we've mentioned before, John McKenna, a Monaghan man. He's the longest serving president of the Football League. He's president of the Football League for 26 years.
Of a unionist background.
Are we
right?
Yeah. He's a Monaghan man. He's good friends with John Golding, who some people say they actually meet in a Liverpool Orange Lodge.
That's kind of what I was trying to say.
Yeah. Again, how they exactly meet isn't fully clear, but he's
not necessarily sympathetic to the
all.
Irish Free State or the Irish football team.
So
the FBI.
We don't see any of the players, like they try to. The list of players that were mentioned, so that who are released for the IFA. So Harry Duggan of Leeds, Alex Stevenson of Everton.
Yeah.
They tried to bring up
I'm not sure
Willie Fallon.
That's why I was looking at my phone to see when he actually played for Everton. It was from 1934 onwards. But he's somebody who played in 1932 and didn't play again for the FAI until 1946.
And he plays in 32 when he's playing for Dolphin in the
Yeah.
League of Ireland.
Yeah.
So this is a big issue. So the only reason we have the Aberdeen players there, Paddy Travers, who's the coach who scouts a lot of players in Ireland, he signed 3 players after the last game we mentioned, the win over the Netherlands, the 2-0 win nearly 2 years ago. Jimmy Daly has a very brief stay. He gets a bit homesick, comes back to Shamrock Rovers. But Joe O'Reilly does well, and Paddy Moore especially does very well. Paddy Moore, I think, scores 27 goals in his first season with Aberdeen, and is one of the top players in the Scottish top flight. So Paddy Travers is happy to let the players leave. Now, he does actually make an extra effort because he comes to Dublin with the players because he wants to keep an eye on Paddy Moore, because Paddy Moore is already showing signs of the kind of alcoholism that is going to basically ruin his career.
Yeah.
So
it is a shame that that comes up so often.
Yeah.
A bit like George Best.
But Travers comes over as a chaperone, effectively, to make sure he stays on the straight and narrow.
Right. Okay. So we have 5 debutants. So it's basically half of a new team that line out. The pattern of the game, I mean, I can read the match report here from, again, we refer to this a lot, which is Donald Cullen's book. So, remembered most for Paddy Moore's goal-scoring exploits, Ireland's first truly competitive game turned out to be a hard, tough, but enjoyable encounter. With World Cup points at stake, the football was not pretty, even though there was 8 goals. There's little complaint from the 1,700 gauge. Yeah, so this figure of 28,000, it's kind of a bit sort of arbitrary as to what the figure was, because they basically go by the gate receipts and kind of divide it by the
gate receipts and estimates,
the cost of getting in.
Yeah, gate receipts and estimates by journalists there. So if you read the same match report, you'll see one journalist say 25,000, another journalist will say 30,000, and the truth probably lies somewhere in between.
Right, and a lot of people would have got it in probably free. They would hopped over a gate or whatever.
Here's one for you: Bohemian members were guaranteed free entry to all Ireland matches in
and we should continue that tradition. And why did that tradition finish? I mean, I should be able to
just flash the membership.
Flash my. Well, I only have a season ticket. I'm not like you. You are a much higher caste of Bows fan than I am. But Belgium got 2 early goals. This is interesting because Belgium actually they went 2-0 up and then 3-1 up. So if you look at the results 4-4, you think, God, Ireland could have won that game. From the pattern of scoring, it looks like Ireland were pretty fortunate actually to come out with anything. Anyway. Now, Versip dispossessed Burke near the backline and crossed for an unmarked Capel to score easily. So I think you were saying, Jerry, before we came on to this, that the forward line were okay, the back line kind of let us down. Then a lob from Versip was knocked in the air. Foley came out but only succeeded in punching the ball to the feet of Stanley van den Einde. You know how to pronounce that. Van den Einde, who lobbed it back into the empty net. So, James Street, that was our goalkeeper, was at fault there. A minute later, Moore raced through a through ball from Kelly. His shot was tackled and scored. Belgium regained their 2-goal lead after the break. Because Van der Eyden actually replaced the other Van den Eyden, and we don't know actually if they're related. It might just be a popular name. Who broke his leg in the first half. So he was able to be substituted, which is only fair.
Yeah,
I mean,
which is agreed. I don't
no
actually
suggestion that he feigned that injury.
I don't actually think they're related as well, because the Van den Einde's, Stanley Van den Einde, he has a brother who plays for the same team as in Beerschot, but this is another Francois Van der Einde, who it's probably just like Gary Kelly and Stephen Kelly weren't related.
Like the Baggio brothers who weren't brothers.
Exactly.
Or were they? Okay. Right, across from Vandal Ingelgum, flew into the box, passed 4 defenders, came to Says, and he cut inside and squared the ball for substitute to score. Moore again replied quickly when he reached a cross from Kennedy and scored. Moore equalised when he lashed onto a high cross by Kelly and steered the ball home. I mean, this is a sensational performance by Paddy Moore.
And if you let's just
there's no evidence here that he missed anything, or maybe he had 17 chances, only scored 4. But I mean, it's quite remarkable. Anyway, I finished this off. A pass allowed Van der Eyden to beat Lynch and score past the advancing Foley, but again Moore equalised. A corner was cleared out to Kendrick, and when he lobbed the ball back into the area, Moore headed home. So basically it was after 30 minutes it was 1-0 to the Belgians. After 26 minutes it was 2-0. Immediately a goal back. And there is this pattern in this game where a goal is scored immediately after a goal. So they're 2-0 up. Then 27 minutes, a minute after the Belgians get their second, we get a goal back, 2-1. Then they score in the 47 minutes, 3-1. Then we score immediately in the 48 minutes, 3-2. Then it's 3-all, 56 minutes. Then it's 4-3 to the Belgians after 63 minutes. And then we equalise 75 minutes. And there's no evidence here from reading this that it was kind of up for grabs in the last 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Maybe they were all bunched after all this excitement and helter-skelter stuff. Maybe they tightened things up. Maybe they felt actually at 4-all we should just sort of,
we know what Joe O'Reilly said,
back.
Bob O'Reilly said in our previous episode, talking about his dad, Joe O'Reilly, who played in this game, was that Moore had another chance, but actually felt sorry for the keeper and didn't take it. Now again, that could just be a good story.
He's made his life a misery.
So listen back to our previous podcast about the 2-0 win against the Dutch. But as you're saying, we're cut open a lot in this game, and there's a little bit of explanation.
Sounds like the keeper. I don't want the family of Jim Foley to contact us and issue a lawsuit, but it sounds like the keeper had a mare. So
Jim Foley is a younger keeper. So Jim Foley makes his breakthrough as a young player for Cork as an 18-year-old. He then gets a move to Glasgow Celtic, where he only makes a couple of appearances for Glasgow Celtic. He's the reserve keeper for Joe Kenaway, who is actually Canadian-born Scot, who's kind of the dominant Celtic keeper at that era. He then moves to Plymouth Argyle, plays a good couple of seasons for them, and then comes back to the League of Ireland playing for Cork. In a continuing theme of life being short and brutal, Jim Foley is dead by the age of 38, which is...
It is a theme of this side,
yes.
Of that era. But
the life expectancy is tragically low.
Yeah, and it wasn't through war or through, sort of...
in some cases, these are what would now be quite preventable health related things.
Because Paddy Moore dies, he's 41.
Tim O'Keefe, who we'll mention a little bit later, is dead by the age of 33.
Yeah, so three of this team don't make it into their mid-40s.
And then the defence, so Jim Foley's in there. There's other options we could have had, but we'll come on to Tom Farquharson's comments for the next game, the Dutch game.
Yeah.
But Moya Lynch isn't a first choice. He's one of the reserves. But what happens, and this is where we have to put a little bit of blame on the FAI, is that the day before, literally the day before...
This is what annoys you. As fans, we're so annoyed about the last 30 years of shambolic organisation, right? And we've been through Saipan and all that jazz. And we've heard the stories of the 80s and the 70s and the buses in Poland and all that sort of stuff. And now we learn that,
90 years ago,
we have to now get annoyed about the shambolic organisation of this game.
So, Shamrock Rovers are playing Drumcondra on the 24th of February.
Not a small match.
No,
big fixture.
It's a league game, big fixture.
But somebody could have said, something, there will be a few players involved in the international in the coming days. Maybe we'll postpone this and take another time. Not at all. Never occurred to anybody.
Rovers claim that they're expecting the match to be postponed because of the international match. That doesn't happen. The League of Ireland tell them they have to play. Now, the League of Ireland is still controlled and run by the FAI. So rather than the FAI having a word with their league committee going, "Do you know what, lads, play that Rovers Drums game next week," they play the game. And
they possibly think that the international side is something that they rely on it once a year, and why should we bother? Our real interest is the club side here and club game. Yeah. Okay.
So the plan is that Paddy Gaskins, who plays at right half, so a right-sided midfielder in this game, is going to play right full back, and that Saki Glenn, who we've met before, William Saki Glenn, is going to play in the half-back role.
Right.
Now, Glenn gets injured in the game against Drumcondra. Now, hardly ideal that, Gaskins is playing his second game in 24 hours today, but he's playing out of position as well.
Because football was reasonably brutal in those days, I'd imagine.
Yeah, it's a tough game. It's energy sapping. I imagine the pitches in February weren't great either.
I mean, there's leg breaks and people being unconscious all over the shop in these games. Yeah.
So Gaskins is playing right half. He has a bit of a mare because he's not used to playing that position. In the match reports, it actually says when he swaps with Joe O'Reilly's a bit more of a versatile player.
Yeah.
He does better because he's playing more centrally and he's a bit more comfortable. But Moya Lynch is a reserve, wasn't planning on being played that day. He plays that game. Actually, I'm just wondering how many Jeremiah's played for Ireland.
It's one of those games.
There's at least four. There's Jeremiah Lynch.
Yeah.
Jeremiah Denny.
It's the Gary of its day, really, isn't it? Really?
Jeremiah Sam Robinson. Yeah. And probably the most recent one I can have is Jerry Murphy, the Crystal Palace player who would have played on their own hand. But anyway, there's a question for listeners. How many Jeremiahs? Am I missing a Jeremiah who played for Ireland? Anyway, so that's why the defence is a bit all over the shop. We're missing one of our star halfbacks, William Saki Glenn. We're playing our right back in midfield, and then we're swapping around the positions halfway through the game. So our defence is a bit all over the place.
So I mean, first cap for three. If you look at if you look at the back five, including the keeper, right? Four of the back five are first caps.
Yeah, so Jim Fox Foley, he's called Fox because he's a redhead. But I think he's a very young man. He hasn't even got his move to Glasgow Celtic yet. I'm trying to remember, like, he's very inexperienced. He's a young. I think he might be 19 or 20 at the time of this game.
Yeah, well, he has a couple of. I mean, I think they're trying to be nice here in the match report, but it sounds like he was all over the shop.
And here's another thing that might frustrate you.
In an era, younger listeners, where you could pick up back passes.
Yes, indeed.
You know what I mean?
So before we talk about Paddy Moore and his amazing game, one other player we should mention is Tim O'Keefe. So Timothy James O'Keefe, Jim O'Keefe, as he's sometimes referred to. An interesting player, kind of a controversial player. This is his first cap. He doesn't win another one for 4 years, and there's a couple of reasons for that. First of all, he doesn't have a great game here. There's 3 or 4 gilt-edged chances that he misses, but it's also said he picks up a knock in the first half.
Right.
And for some reason, we do not replace him. Now, as you mentioned,
a knock that could be like a broken bone,
could be a dead leg,
could be a concussion. Like a knock in those days is pretty significant. Okay.
So speaking of knocks, Stanley Van den Ende, who you've mentioned, who scores, is it the second
goal, 26 minutes.
Yeah, he's on the receiving end of a very bad challenge. His leg is shattered basically.
Yeah.
So bad that he ends up spending 3 months in Dublin in a hospital.
It doesn't say who did it, and it doesn't say what the circumstances were.
So he's replaced by his namesake, the other Van den Ende. Apparently, he basically doesn't play football for nearly 3 years. He actually uses the time to go travelling. He visits Australia and New Zealand, but he's 3 months in Dublin in plaster. He does actually come back. He plays in the 38 qualifying campaign, but this is how. Again,
possibly didn't even win a free.
Yeah. So this is the limits of medical science, but also the impact. If you're injured, you could be seriously injured.
But that's the end of your livelihood, I suppose. Yeah.
So yes, Stanley Van den Ende goes off, but we don't sub off Tim O'Keefe. So Tim O'Keefe misses 2 or 3 good chances, and this is interesting
because his leg is probably hanging off him.
Yeah, and Tim O'Keefe is the first winger to score more than 100 goals in the League of Ireland. He scores 113 goals in his career in the League of Ireland. He also is the most expensive player to leave the league when he goes and joins Hibernian for £400 shortly after this. £400, I know. And again, this is a guy who has a very short career because he contracts cancer when he's 33 and is dead within months. So now, the other reason why he doesn't get a cap there's 2 reasons why he doesn't get another cap for 4 years. He is accused of stealing the wallet of Andre van der Veer, the Belgian goalkeeper,
which is bad form.
Well, it is said that the wallet disappears and is found in O'Keefe's possession.
Oh,
so he
really?
Yes. So he is
after this match.
Yes. So he is effectively banned. Now, there's another reason.
So he's accused and sort of found.
So
does he deny it?
It's something I need to look into a bit more because how this happens. If he claims, I found on the floor.
Okay.
So he doesn't play again for 4 years. He also dirties his bib a bit.
4 years.
Yeah.
Because of this.
And you got
at all.
He's considered one of the best players in the league. He's a lightweight guy. Joe Riley describes him as weighing only maybe 8 or 9 stone, but he has a ferocious left foot shot, like a rocket of a shot. Prolific goal scorer. Moves around a lot. He's at Cork, he's at Waterford, he's at Limerick, has a time in Scotland.
This game is kind of devastating for some people. I mean, this guy gets banned for 4 years. The guy breaks his leg and can't play for 3 years.
3 years, yeah. Also, Tim...
3 of them die before they're in their mid-40s.
Oh, yeah, we will come into the rest of them. But Tim O'Keefe then kind of dirties his bib even more because obviously we're talking about the relationships with different associations. He goes up unsanctioned and plays a match for Belfast Celtic in the Irish League. So even though he's a very good player, he doesn't have a great game here. He's probably injured. Maybe he steals a wallet and he dirties his bib with the FAI a lot.
It's like total rogue. He's a rogue.
But don't he gets
it's but a flesh wound. I'll be fine. I'll be alright.
I won't even go to the bit where he gets suspended by Waterford for refusing to play in a playoff and various other things and goes on strike. And he's a fascinating character.
Right.
We might talk about him more.
Character.
He does win a couple of more caps. So
undroppable. You have to play him.
We might come back to him. But I suppose the focus of our episode is Patrick Moore.
Yes, I think we're underplaying his significance because of the wallet stealing rogue.
I just wanted to mention some of the other players.
Mick O'Keefe, sorry. Jim O'Keefe.
Yeah. Tim O'Keefe. So I did want to mention some of the other players who, because this is the Moore match.
This is the Moore match, and of course, if you know anything about this period, if you're talking to fans, there is an understanding that there was a game, a 4-4 draw, and there's an understanding that Paddy Moore scored for them, and it was a record that wasn't broken for John.
And you might say to people, who else played in that game? And most people wouldn't know. I haven't a clue.
By the way, if you're ever in Ballybock and you're ever on Clonard Avenue, I don't want to name the address because it's unfair to the family, but there is actually a plaque on the wall of the house that Paddy Moore was from on Clonard Avenue. Okay, so you were going to talk about another player.
Yeah, well, we might talk about Paddy Moore because there's a great if I can find the story. I think Sean Ryan tells the story.
This is about the broken window.
Yes, so if I can find it. So yeah,
for any of you out there who have ever broken a window playing football, which I did, I was in the company of a cousin of mine once when we were kids, and we broke a window with one of the neighbours, and it was extremely extremely controversial at the time. Because Des, if you're listening, you've been told not to play football on the street, and you did. Anyway, my window was broken.
Anyway, you were talking about the scorelines. I wanted to get the actual quote in that it goes to Moore's personality and persona. He's this happy-go-lucky sort of chap.
Yeah,
he's very charming and very kind of quiet, but very confident in himself at the same time. And at halftime, he basically apparently said, "Don't worry, lads, I'll fix things up in the second half." And I suppose he did, to an extent. But
in terms of scoreline,
right?
Because we're 2-1 down at half time.
Yeah, and as we say, Paddy Travers has come over with Paddy Moore and Joe O'Reilly to make sure that Paddy Moore doesn't go on the drink. He's successful, but Paddy Moore is back visiting his family in around Clonliffe Avenue, as you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And what's he doing a couple hours before the match? He's playing football on the road with a group of young lads, and this is attested to by one of the
kind of Michael Dara McCauley kind of,
yeah,
you know, that's the kind of thing Michael Dara McCauley would do.
Yeah,
you know, in the morning of an All-Ireland final, he might be out playing basketball on the street, kind of, you know. There's great stories about Michael Dara McCauley forgetting his boots and, you know, asking to play basketball on the week of an All-Ireland because he's not really into the gas, that kind of thing. Yeah, so he's kicking the ball on Clonliffe Avenue.
He's showing a few kids a few tricks and flicks.
As you do.
And one of the young lads kicks a ball through a window. And this becomes a big deal. The Gardaí arrive on the scene. The Gardaí arrive on the scene. And there's an investigation.
They may or may not know who Paddy Moore is.
Well, it is then pointed...
And they may or may not be sympathetic to the association football.
Well, apparently the Gardaí are pursuing their investigations when it is pointed out to one of the guards that the gentleman who's playing with the young lads should be in Dalymount Park. And then the Gardaí, realising this, apparently flags down, goes out onto Ballybock Road, flags down the nearest car and says, "Get this man to Dalymount Park."
Really?
Yes.
This is brilliant stuff.
So Paddy Moore nearly misses a match because of a Garda investigation into a broken window.
Fantastic.
So, you know, what might have happened?
The guards are called.
Yes, the guards are called. There's a great story about Paddy Moore that basically when he is kind of persona non grata at Aberdeen because he comes back to Ireland for an international match, says he has an injury and has to stay at home at least until Christmas, doesn't come back till late January because he's quote unquote injured without providing any evidence
of injury.
He's dragged in front of the board of directors of Aberdeen who want to give him a telling off, but he just charms them and he's back in the first team the following week because that's the type of person
what a legend.
He is. Yeah, so he is a charming individual.
I am all about Paddy Moore.
And if we look at this game, if we read about the second goal, he picks up at the halfway line and dribbles through a rake of players and shoots and scores. The final goal, the equalising goal, this is a guy who's 5'5", 5'6", is him out jumping their centre halves, and everyone says he has this salmon leap. I mean, Joe O'Reilly talks about him playing against David Micklejohn, who's the Ranger centre half, who's a big man, 6 foot plus, and Moore constantly beating him in the air. So I mean, if you look at this, he's scoring a goal where he's dribbling through 3 or 4
There's
players.
nothing he can't do.
He's scoring headers, and then one of the other goals is basically he watches the flight of the ball. He sees that the 2 Belgian defenders have misjudged it, so he just basically waits for it to fall to him and taps it in with the far post. So his reading of the game, his all-round ability as a dribbler, a finisher, a header of a ball, it's an all-round package.
He keeps scoring, by the way. I mean, through his career, if you go through the list of results here, he scores in almost every single game he lines out in. Anyway,
and the fact that we haven't had a game in 2 years probably denied him opportunity of scoring more goals.
Did he get away with the broken window? I think he did he?
I think they did, yes.
Okay, all right. Okay, so 4-4 draw, though, Jerry. It appears that we are out. Well, would you think they were kind of... It's not the result we wanted. We probably would have had to win.
Well, here's the thing.
Probably have to go to Holland and win, and that's going to be unlikely because...
we feel that the Dutch are going to beat the Belgians because the Dutch have played Belgium a few months before this and hammered them 9-3. So we know that if we go away and get a result in Amsterdam, which maybe isn't beyond the realms of possibility because the last game we played is a 2-0 win in Amsterdam, that if we could get even a draw and then the Dutch hammer the Belgians and the Belgians finish bottom, we can finish second. So as long as we don't mess it up, even a draw in Amsterdam is good enough for us. But sure, why wouldn't we win?
Tighten up at the back.
Maybe get a couple other players released.
Maybe don't play a high profile League of Ireland game day beforehand. Right. Yes. Maybe tell our key striker not to be kicking ball on the street and breaking windows before the game.
Yeah, we tighten up on
things like that.
Yes, tighten up on those sort of
tighten
things.
up on those things.
And you might do it. We might beat the
squeeze
Dutch.
past the Dutch and romp to the World Cup finals.
Yeah. So this is the thing. We are looking at this game going, right, there is a sense that we've thrown it away a little bit against the Belgians. We've beaten them several times, and we've kind of let ourselves down with a couple of silly mistakes. So maybe we'll rectify that against the Dutch.
Yeah, because in those trio games that we did previously, 1928, 1929, 1930. Now I know it's different. It's a different side.
Yeah,
but we have beaten them comprehensively 3 times.
Yeah.
So I mean, we have nothing to fear in terms of the cultural hang-ups that we might have about Belgian football. We've beaten them 4-2, 4-0 and 3-1. So, anyway, 4-all. Right, okay. So we have to go on to the Dutch.
The World Cup qualifying campaign is live. We've picked up a point.
Off.
We've dropped 2 perhaps, or we've dropped 1 because it was 2 points win.
And we've created a
record, because Paddy Moore is the first person to score 4 goals in a World Cup qualifying campaign. There are 3 hat-tricks in World Cup history prior to that. Bert Patenaude, the USA striker, Guillermo Stabile, and Pedro Cia, first from Argentina, the second from Uruguay.
Right.
They've scored hat-tricks in the World Cup. No one has ever scored 4. Paddy's the first.
Absolutely amazing. What a great guy. Okay, right. Do we leave it there?
I think we leave it there.
No, okay, we'll leave it there. And next episode, Jerry, we're going to deal with the second game of this qualifying series, where we go to Amsterdam in hope of qualifying. We probably need a win to beat the Dutch at home. That game is played on the 8th of April, and we'll tell you what happens there. But it's not a pretty tale. I don't think it'd be it wouldn't be a surprise to anybody to learn that we didn't qualify for the 1934 World Cup.
You would have heard about it before.
You would have known about it already, our exploits. But anyway, that'll be the next episode in our podcast, Each Game on Its Merits.